Hey, Roofless Church, what's up? It's me, Pedro Silva, talking to you today about being full of it. Now, what is full of it? Well, for me, the IT is an acronym for imaginary thought. So when I say we're full of it for the purposes of this blog post, what I'm saying is we're full of imaginary thought. So yeah, what does that mean? Well, the short of it is, from my perspective, I'm going to make up a statistic. This statistic, if it's a real one, I don't know about it. This statistic, I'm sitting here telling you right now that I'm making this up. Alright? But in my experience, I would venture to say that about 60% of what we experience in life is in our imagination. And what do I mean by that? Well, right now, I'm doing this post, right? I'm doing this blog. And in that blog, I'm imagining, as I'm doing this post, that some people are going to actually watch this and get something out of it. I'm imagining that some people might take my message a certain way. I don't know these people because I'm making them up. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm saying, or making the assumption, that at least 60% of my engagement with this video camera right now, doing this post, is in my imagination. Now, that means that only about 40% of it, based off my made-up statistic, about 40% of it is just pure, unfiltered communication from me to whoever receives it. I'm putting out something pure, without any kind of motives, without any kind of ideas. About 40% of what I'm putting out is clean and clear, direct communication, purposeless communication, meaning I'm putting it out there just to put it out there for no reason whatsoever. 40% is coming out that way. And somewhere out there, some other person who comes in contact with this information is going to receive it, about 40% of it, that isn't caught up in their own imagination of what they think I said. So I don't know if that's a very clear message that I'm trying to put out here. So let me give an analogy that I gave to one of my friends. All right, so let's look at baseball, for example, right? Now, we will say, oh, I went to this game, I experienced it this way, it was awesome, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to tell you 60% at least of what you experienced in the baseball game is in your head. Why so? Because in and of itself, and some of you guys have heard me say these things before, certain activities in the world have no real meaning. We assign meaning to it based off of our mentality. So like a ball flying over a fence doesn't mean anything. A bat swinging through the air doesn't mean anything. A person swinging their arm doesn't mean anything. A person holding a bat, swinging it, hitting the ball, and the ball going over the fence, when you put all those together, if you care about baseball, then that's a home run, and it's got lots of meaning if it's your team. If it's not your team, it has a different meaning. But essentially, all that meaning is stuff that we added to it. It's all imaginary. And then you take some person that comes, discover some people that don't know anything about baseball, and we take them to a baseball game. They're just going to see people doing something. They might know it's a game, but they're not going to get anything out of it because they don't have the background to be able to imagine or project meaning into it. So, again, when I say everything or 60% of what we do is imagine thought, I don't know, I'm not an expert in this stuff that I try to say. It's just some ideas that pop up in my head, and I figure they might be of some value to somebody. So what value would knowing that 60% of what you experience, and some people 90% and some people 100%, but what value would it be? Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm admitting that 60% of I think that 60% of what I'm saying and putting out here is from my imagination, right? But in my full-on, sitting and resting within my imagination, I really imagine that I'm putting it out here for no reason, which doesn't make sense, right? I'm imagining a person that's objective and will put out stuff for no reason, just out of love and pure altruistic motives. I'm imagining that I'm that person. But I'm also saying that 60% of that person I imagine is just made up in my head. I don't know if that makes... Alright, anyway, this is sort of getting ridiculous, and I don't really know what I'm saying. But I hope that you can kind of get an idea of what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that you're going to go out here in life, you're going to live life, you're going to experience things. Some stuff is going to make you happy, some stuff is going to make you sad, some stuff is going to make you angry, or all these different feelings that are going to come up. Most of it is imagined. Most of it comes from ideas of what we think things mean, or ideas of what we hope things mean. That's just how it is here. Now, is imagination bad? Definitely not. If it wasn't for imagination, we wouldn't have Disneyland. We wouldn't have movies. We wouldn't have, relationships, romantic relationships, or any kind of relationships, really. Because a lot of relationships and a lot of things that we experience are fueled by our imaginations. They're fueled by the hopes of a better future. If you're in a down situation and you want to be in a better situation, your imagination can serve you and help you. But I think that it's worth knowing that the imagination is so powerful that it pretty much occupies a lot of our experience. And if we don't know that, we can get caught up in our own imagination. And when we get caught up in our own imagination, all those things that benefit from imagination start to suffer because of imagination. So what I mean by that is like friends that you have, different people that you talk about in your life. Instead of being real people, they become characters in our own imagination. They become characters in our stories. Because we all have these stories in life. You've heard me say this before. We all have stories. And in our stories, we don't realize that we're like the narrators. We don't realize that we're, a lot of times, making up these stories and placing people into those stories as different characters and deciding like who they are and what they do and what they mean. And we engage with that story, and a lot of times we're not engaging with each other. So the reason why I'm putting it out here and saying that 60% of what we put out is imagined is because I'm hoping that we can kind of come to that realization, come to that consciousness, and be able to think about, like, what am I imagining about this person? What am I imagining about this circumstance? What am I imagining about this situation? And how can I basically have options in what I imagine? Maybe things don't mean what we think they mean. Or maybe they mean multiple things. It's not really important what they mean if you know that you have the power to give those things meaning with the imagination. But if you don't know you're imagining, we're stuck. So here's the being unstuck. And I imagine that some of you will get something out of this. And I imagine some of you will say, what's this guy talking about? And either way, I'm here.